Hello, everyone. Welcome to another lesson with me, Teacher Sherby. In this lesson, we are going to talk about how to subtract a mixed number from a mixed number. And these mixed numbers are going to have unlike denominators because we know that if we're subtracting mixed number from a mixed number and you have like denominators, then you can simply go ahead and subtract it. You don't have to find your LCD. But in this case, we want to do the extra work because our lives aren't going to be equal all the time. Here's a mixed number. You have 3 and 2/3 minus 1 and 5/6. And what you're doing is you're taking away 1 and 5/6 from 3 and 3/3. And as I always say, you want to make sure that you look at your denominators. Because if your denominators are different, we want to make sure that we find equivalent fractions of them. And we already know how to find equivalent fractions. We find the multiples of our denominators and look at the least number that they share, which is why you'll always hear me say LCD. That is your least common denominator. Our LCD for 3 and 6 is 6. So now we can find the equivalent fractions. 2/3 is how many 6? 2/3 is 4/6. And notice that I'm keeping my whole number with my fraction because I don't want to separate them. And since we are subtracting, we want to make sure that we keep everything together so that we're not forgetting to subtract our whole number when we get to the end. And we want to make sure that we end up with the right answer. Okay? Now, 5/6 is how many 6? 5/6 is the same thing as 5/6 because 6 is already in the denominator. And we said our LCD is equal to 6. You're not going to change that, now are we? All right, now we have two fractions going on. And we also have, let me write that in, because we said we want to keep them together. You have 1 and 5/6. You have 3 and 4/6. But don't change the order of your fractions or your mixed numbers. If 3 and 4/6 come first, keep that on the left. If 1 and 5/6 come second, keep it on the left. Don't change your order of it because you are going to end up with the wrong answer for the most part. There are times when you might have coincidence and you end up with the right answer, but it does not happen like that all the time. Pay attention to the order. Order matters. All right, we still have our mixed numbers that we're subtracting. And remember I said we're talking about unlike denominators. Find your equivalent fractions, which we already did. And let's put 5/6 is the same thing as 1 and 5/6 because that's what we started with. Now, can we subtract these? Can you do 4/6, take away 5/6? No, why not? Exactly, we cannot take away 5 from 4. This is what we're doing. We cannot take away that. That is going to give us a negative number, and we're not doing negative numbers right now. So because we're not doing that, we cannot take away a big number from a small number, which is why we are going to create a chart with our equivalent fractions, and we're going to label it whole number world and fraction world, where you put whole number in whole number world and you put fraction in fraction world. Let's look at it. You want to make sure that you're starting from the left. You have 3 and 4/6 because now we're working with our equivalent fractions. And then you have 1 and 5/6. Notice that you still can't subtract. But what are we going to do? Remember, we're doing subtraction with regrouping. Think of when you have, let's say, 32 and, well, let's make that 28. Think of this. Look at your ones place. You have 2 and you have 8. You can't take away 8 from 2, right? But what we can do is we can go next door. We can borrow a 10, take away 1 from the 3, you're left with 2, and bring that 10 over to the 2. And now we can add those together. 10 plus 2 is equal to 12. That's the same concept that we have with subtraction with regrouping. Even though we have fractions, it's the same concept. We can borrow a 1 from the 3, and the 1 that we borrow, guess what? Now we have to change it into a fraction. Take away the 1 from the 3, you're left with 2, and you rewrite your whole as a fraction. Your denominator tells you how to write that. Since your denominator is 6, you're going to write your fraction as 6 6. And now we can add 4 6 and 6 6 together. 4 6 plus 6 6 is equal to 10 6. And yes, that is an improper fraction, but that is quite okay. That is fine, because we want to make sure that our numerator on the left is greater than our numerator on the right. Now we can subtract. You can take away 5 from 10, because that makes sense. Take away 5 from 10, you're left with 5 6. And now we can focus on our whole numbers. Our whole numbers are 2 and 1. Take away 1 from 2, you're left with 1. And your answer is 1 and 5 6. Again, your answer is 1 and 5 6. Let's look at another example. We have 5 and 2/3. Take away 1 and 4 6. So you're taking away 1 and 4 6 from 5 and 2/3. We already know that we have to find equivalent fractions. You find your LCD, which is equal to 6, and ask yourself, 2/3 is how many 6? 2/3 is 4 6, and 4 6 is 4 6. Keep your whole numbers. We're not working with them as yet. You work with your whole numbers at the end when you're done with your fraction. Now, there are a couple of ways that we can do this. You can still subtract and regroup, or you can go ahead and you can ask yourself, can we subtract? Can you take away 4 from 4? You definitely can. If you take away 4 from 4, you're left with 0. And look at this. Now you have 0 6, but let's not look at that. Let's look at subtraction with regrouping. Create a chart. Plug in your numbers. We can definitely subtract. Take away 1 from the 5, you're left with 4, and bring that 1 over as a whole number. Your whole number, you can rewrite it as 6 6, because now we're in fraction world. And you can add them together. 4 plus 6 is equal to 10. Keep your denominator. And now we can subtract. You can take away your 4 from 10. Take away 4 from 10. You have... You have 6. and your fraction is 6/6. 6/6, we said, is the same thing as 1 whole. Now, here's the thing. Even though you have 1 whole over here, you can bring that 1 whole in your whole number world. But let's subtract. Take away 1 from 4. You're left with 3. And the 1 that you bring over here, now you can bring it down. 3 plus 1 is equal to 4. So you see, you can subtract, you can regroup, and when you do that, you might end up with an improper fraction, and that's okay. That's fine. Because again, you want to make sure that your numerator on the left is greater than your numerator on the right so that you can subtract. If your numerator on the right is greater than your numerator on the left, you are going to have to subtract and regroup. Watch this video as many times as you please to make sure that you understand how to subtract and regroup. Yes, it might be so confusing, but you'll get it eventually. All right? See you in the next lesson.